And record to the cloud.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for the introduction. I have done LinkedIn presentations for over 15 years. So things have changed since I first started, and we'll be doing really an overview. I was telling the guys in the graduate research area that I can't do a how-to on every aspect or every feature that we'll talk about, because we'd be here for like 3 hours or more. So I do have a lot of resource links at the end of the presentation, and we can also send this presentation out to you all so that you can see how to do some of the features or how to utilize some of the features that I'm going to talk about. And I've already asked the individuals here on site how many of them have LinkedIn profiles, but could you all raise your hands if you have, or put it in the chat, if you have a LinkedIn profile currently? That will give me an idea of, okay, I see Sydney's raised her hand.
Yeah, I might be able to.
Okay, all right. So then we will go from there. Can you
See if I can. Let me see if I can put it.
Sorry, you all, we're trying to figure out how we can view you all as we're looking also at the presentation.
Together. Sometimes, there we go. Put it down there.
Okay, perfect, got it. All right, okay, so that helps me to know that there are a few of you who do not, or a few of you who your LinkedIn profile is in such a state that you'd rather not indicate that you actually have a profile, which is totally fine, because we're going to talk about that in the presentation. But again, today's topic is really going to be talking about how you can use LinkedIn for career management, personal branding, and then also networking. And you all just call my name. Those of you who are behind me, if you have questions and I don't see you, I can see some through that camera, but not clearly. All right, so the first thing I want to do is make sure we're all on the same page when we're talking about personal branding. So I want to put some key terms up here so you'll have an idea of what I'm talking about throughout this presentation in terms of what that means. And really, I underline promise because it really is something that's promoting who you are and what you bring to the table. So when I talk about using LinkedIn as something, as a vehicle or a method to promote your brand, I'm really talking about how you can use it to promote the value that you would bring to an organization, a partnership, or some sort of collaboration, however you plan to use LinkedIn. When I talk about personal brand management, it really is being strategic about the different resources and the different mediums that you use to promote, to communicate a collection of knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences. And so this is the main way that people are using LinkedIn when they're optimizing it, is they're trying to use as many features that promote their knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences as best as possible. Really, your personal brand is going to help decision makers, and that's any type of decision maker, whether they're a hiring agent, whether there's someone who might want to bring you on as a consultant, whether it's someone who wants to partner with you on a project, or someone who wants to put you forth for an award. Is helping these people recognize that you're the best person for that particular type of opportunity. A lot of people think exclusively jobs. They don't think of collaborations and projects and awards and leadership opportunities, but these are very helpful for those purposes as well. Additionally, if you have it in your email signature, it's also a way for someone to learn a little bit more about you. I don't know if you've gotten an email from someone before and you're like, who is this person asking me this or wanting to do this with me? And you really can't find much else about them. What you can do to resolve that on your end whenever you're trying to partner with someone or whenever you're reaching out to someone is having that LinkedIn link on your signature so they can click on it and have a better idea of who you are and why they might want to collaborate with you or partner with you on something. All right, so when we talk about identifying our brand, really some people who aren't as familiar with using personal branding concerning themselves and their own vocational journey have to start at the very beginning. And really that is what makes you special. Thinking of the types of careers that you aspire to, is that language that's used in that industry and in that profession integrated into your LinkedIn profile? And as far as the qualifications, that you have to be able to get that position. Is that language in your LinkedIn profile? Is it listed in your skills? When people write you recommendations and put it on LinkedIn, do they emphasize these qualifications? And then finally, what makes you competitive for the type of position that you're looking for? These are the things that you're thinking about when you're trying to figure out what is my particular brand and does my LinkedIn profile scream my brand? When you're trying to figure out the essence, when you're trying to think of the essence of your brand, you really want to think about the themes that run through your resume, your cover letter, if you have an e-portfolio. What are those high overarching themes? Is it educator? Is it motivator? Is it, programmer, project manager? What are those overarching themes that are found to tie together your interests, your experiences, and your skills? In addition to that, some of you may have a personal mission statement. If you have not ever heard of this concept, you definitely should look up Stephen Covey's book where he talks about, I think it's a highly effective skills of, what is it?
Highly effective habits.
Habits. So they talk about having a personal mission statement, and that is one of the resources that I have listed at the end as well. So that could help you develop your personal mission statement. And then from there, you can see, do those themes all align? Because really what you're looking for is coherence across the board. Think about the tools. And when I say tools, I'm thinking of like online things like LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter, where you might speak a lot about what your career passion is. Is there a theme that aligns with your professional interests? When you have your resume, that's another tool. Does it communicate your interests, skills, and your experiences? Because all of these are resources that you're using to promote who you are and what you bring to the table. So when I talk about managing your brand online, I'm talking about your digital footprints. Are y'all familiar with digital footprints, that language? Okay, good. All right, so I won't go into depth with that, but really it's what people know about you. You want to shape that. You do not want media to shape that for you. And some of you may be like, I don't think media is interested in me. Well, you never know. So it's always best to have as much control as you can about what's out there on the internet about you. So you want to be proactive and use at least one platform, whether that's Twitter, or whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever. Choose one platform to really design so that it promotes your skills and your abilities as they are professionally. And then you, of course, can have your personal social media, but have at least one that is professional oriented, because people are going to Google you, and those resources can help them have a better idea of who you are. You want to make sure that when you do have one, that you maintain your presence. And so when I asked the question, do you have LinkedIn? And some people kind of did the shaky hand thing or didn't answer at all. If you have MySpace from what, the 1980s or 90s, that is not something that you're probably maintaining. So you want to make sure that whatever you have as a social medium, that you are regularly checking it. And even if you're not creating original content to put on there, that you are at least reposting things or posting articles that relate to things that you're passionate about in terms of your vocation or your career interest. You want to share this content regularly, because this helps people to see that you truly are committed to this field or this industry that you say you're committed to. If you create a LinkedIn profile and say you created it back in, I don't know, 2008, and you have not been on it since 2008, chances are it does not promote you very well. It is not something that you would say is a good selling point, and you want it to be a selling point. If you're not going to use it, I highly recommend that you delete it. As someone who did hiring in the times that I was the director, I will say that one of the most annoying things is Googling someone, finding their LinkedIn profile. There's no picture. There's no accomplishment statements in their experience section. They may not even have updated information about their current position. And these are things that are complete turnoffs, especially if you're looking at an organization that's considering itself to be innovative and cutting edge. So make sure that you are doing something to invest in the content that is on your social media choice, whatever you choose for that purpose. And then protect your online image. I'm going to go back to the whole MySpace things. Delete any social media accounts that you do not manage currently. Someone can do identity fraud by taking over those accounts or hacking those accounts. And if you're not checking them regularly, you won't know until it's too late. So you want to make sure that you are very aware of what's happening in terms of your accounts. Delete them if you're not regularly checking them. Delete them if you're not going to use them. Oh, and I also recommend doing Google alerts so that you can get updates about information that's online about you. And that is the broader topic that I want to talk about before I get into the meat and potatoes of optimizing your LinkedIn. So before I go any further, any questions about personal branding? I'm gonna check this chat. Oh, okay. All right. So I'm going to move on. That chat was an old chat. So we want you to go beyond just your name and your picture. And for those of you who actually have a picture, because that is not how you would optimize LinkedIn. Why is this not moving? There we go. All right, so these are the common LinkedIn uses for individuals who are looking to optimize how they use it. They want to use it for personal brand management, which we just discussed. They use it as a contact database, and this is so that you can look individuals up. For example, when you have connections, you usually can do a search, and when you do a search in LinkedIn for a particular service provider or a person in a particular profession or organization that you might be interested in, you can reach out to them if they are within 3 degrees of you. So your first connection, your second connection, or your third connection. And we had an issue with a legal issue with land in Florida. And I did not know any lawyers in Florida because I do not live in Florida, though that's where our land is. And so I was actually able to find the lawyer who has worked with me for my will and getting everything resolved with the land, inheriting the land that we were inheriting. And I got that contact information through LinkedIn. It wasn't a first contact. It was actually someone who was the contact of someone else. So using it as a contact database is wonderful in the job search, but it's also wonderful when you're looking for service providers or professional guidance and advice. Application materials repository. I didn't want to use database again, so I used repository, but essentially this is where you can put your resume, you can put other materials because you can actually attach PDFs and videos to your LinkedIn profile. And you can also put links to social media websites or to personal websites, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's also a great resource for conducting employer and industry research because you can Google them and see what sort of announcements that they put up, what sort of positions they're hiring for, and who's working for them now, and then find out more about who's working for them now, because if they're in a position that you're applying for, you can see what skills and qualifications that they have. And if you have the same ones, you can actually add that to your LinkedIn profile in hopes of making yourself more competitive, since that's what made this person competitive enough to actually be offered and given the position. So, and then job search, because they do have a job search function in the LinkedIn database. So these are the basics. Those of you who have LinkedIn accounts, please go through and think about which of these you have and which of these you don't. Most people think the basics is the name. I disagree. I think you need more than a name. So I'm going to talk about the basics first, and then I'm going to talk about the things that you can use to expand and make it more competitive and more informative. So as far as the basics go, your name, your profile photo, preferably a professional profile photo. They do all types of photos here at the grad school, but then you can also, if you have a friend who does photography, ask them to help you with a professional photo for your LinkedIn account. The background photo is optional. I don't use it because it's just more than I'm interested in doing, but some people use it to put a background photo of their city, which kind of promotes their commitment to working in that city, or it says something about them in terms of the design. And so there's different ways that you can do that. The headline is really important because when people do a search, like if they're looking to hire someone with a specific set of skills or level of experience, the first thing that's going to pop up as the preview is the name and the headline. And so you want to make sure that that headline speaks to what you bring to the table as a professional, not necessarily your specific title now. Some people use it for their specific title. So like career advisor or graduate research assistant. I do not use graduate research assistant because that doesn't tell anybody anything about me if they do a search. I do life skills educator because that talks a lot about what I do in a broad enough term to be relevant to people who are doing things in those areas. You want to have a summary and you want to make sure that your summary says something about you. Contact information is important. If you don't want to put your phone number, I recommend that you do not. I don't think that level of information is necessary, but if you're job seeking, I do encourage you to use your email address so that people can know how to contact you beyond just using LinkedIn. One of the things I hate about LinkedIn is that they do charge you like $500 a year if you choose to go beyond like the basic subscription and get a premium subscription. It's a little absurd. And so people aren't able to contact you as easily if they don't have an upgraded account, right? And so if you want yourself to be more accessible or your profile to be more accessible to people who might have basic accounts, then including your email address is another way for them to contact you, since they have a limited number of outreach that they can do without a premium account. I don't know what it is. I think it's really low, like 10 to 15 a month, where they can actually send a message to someone to connect with them. Education, location, current position, industry. Industry is something also that pops up on your preview as well as your current position. And then this is really important if you're looking to find a job, if you're looking for collaboration opportunities. There's a feature in your profile that says that you are open to. So open to new opportunities, open to consulting, and so forth. When you click that on your profile, then when people are looking for someone for consulting, you will pop up because you've indicated that that's how you want people to be able to see you. So that's the LinkedIn profile. These are the things that go beyond the basics, and I will show you some examples for those of you who are like, oh, okay, this is a lot of information. Can I see something visually? Yes, we will do some visuals. Okay, so talking about the beyond basics. Now, some people think that the experience section is something that's important to include, but they don't realize the limitation that they set when they don't put accomplishment statements about what that experience is. So yes, you may have the position of blah, blah, blah at XYZ company, but that doesn't tell me what you did. And so just like with the resume, you want to include bullets or a paragraph block of what those responsibilities were in that position. Because again, this is how someone's going to know whether or not, or one of the ways that they are going to build a case for whether or not they want to hire you or collaborate with you. So you want to put as much information as possible in your experience. Pull some of the language that you have from your resume and use that as bullets in your experience section. Another option is the honors and awards. That could be, for those of us who are students, awards that we've gotten as students that speak to our work in family and consumer science education, or whatever field that we're planning to go into with that degree. Or it could be awards that you've gotten in the workplace. But people often forget to put those awards and those honors. And it's a really good way to see, for people to see that that's where you excelled, or that's something that someone wanted to recognize about your skill set. So include those. Your education should include all 3 of your degrees, the one you're working on currently, and perhaps the 2 that you previously had and more if you've had other ones. Making sure that you include the school. Some people don't realize that including that information helps build connections, especially if that person is an alum of the same organization, or maybe one of their best workers graduated from that program. You never know what intersection of that information is going to help that person make that hiring decision. So again, more is better. So education information, noteworthy courses, please do not list all your courses, just the ones that most people wouldn't assume that you would take in family and consumer sciences. So something that adds, I know Dylan is doing cross-cultural studies, and so putting some of those courses, because people wouldn't assume that he has that experience based on his family and consumer sciences education. So put the ones that add to your education information. And then certifications. And so this is the one that I wanted to actually show you guys. So I'm going to stop this screen share and finally step into LinkedIn. Let me go back here and share the screen so that you all can see. Okay. All right. So this is my friend from high school. She is a professor out in Syracuse, and she does a lot of different things in terms of lectures. But one of the things that I want to draw your attention to is, where's the certifications? Oh, there's the honors and awards. Past it. There we go. So you'll see this section right here. I guess you can't see my mouse. It says license and certifications. And so you'll see that she has the QM rubric training. And then she's also done some teaching certification for online teaching. So if she was to apply for a distance program like FCSE, but in her area of her discipline, they would be able to see that she's had those certifications, and that would make her more marketable than someone who didn't communicate that they've actually had formal training in online teaching. In addition to that, something else that I want to draw your attention to is how she includes her about section here to talk about her experience. She allows you to do the messaging. We're going to click on her contact, and she has her email address here in her contact information. That's something that I highly recommend. One other thing that I'm going to talk about though, before I move on from the contact information, is this link here where it says LinkedIn/n/Jackson-M-PH-D-MAB-909167111. That is not something that you want to put on your resume or in your signature. So something that I recommend that you do is look at shortening, and you can look at shortening your link, your LinkedIn link. And I'll show you what that looks like, because that's one of the things that I did with mine, so that it's easier, one, for you to remember if you had to actually tell someone verbally, but also so that it's something that people can click on and find very easily. So those are the resources in terms of LinkedIn. Something else that's really important is language. I'm going to look up one of my previous students. And those of you who are not familiar with how to do searches, this will show you how to do that. You just go in here. You'll see that I previously searched her because it's typing her in. I want to show you another resource. You see her, her about section is very extensive, but you'll also see, I want to show you her language section. So I'm going to scroll down to her language. And you'll see her languages listed here. You'll also notice that it allows you to say what your level of fluency is. Now, I typically recommend that you only put your language if you're fluent or proficient in it. I don't recommend putting something elementary like what she did for French. However, she is currently in Paris, so putting elementary French actually is to her benefit. So whether or not you use some of the tips that I say are all going to be conditional to what you are using your LinkedIn profile for, or what experience that you're trying to get. So you'll see these other languages that she listed here. You'll also notice that she has her honors and awards, and look to see that she didn't just list the award, the date, and where she got it from, but she actually described what this was about. Like, what does that mean that she has this particular award? Because some of the awards are not going to make sense. Another link that I recommend people use is projects. Does anybody use projects? Oh, good. So we're all collaborators, right? And there's global collaborations, there's national collaborations. One of the things that I love about the projects section is that you'll see down here where it says other creators, it's actually connecting the LinkedIn profile to other people who they collaborated with on that project. And so people get to see who else you have worked with. And if they want to get someone who can vouch for you as a collaborator, they can click on that person and send them a LinkedIn message and say, hey, I saw you worked on a such and such project with blah, blah, blah. We're considering da, 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 da. What sort of, feedback do you have from that experience? So it's great because it's really beneficial in explaining what that project was, but also showing them the level of connections, particularly if those people are high level people in the industry that you're planning on going into. That definitely helps you to go a little bit further in what you're trying to do. And then you can see even more information here because she actually put a hyperlink to the project. And so you can click on this and get more information about what that was all about. So those are some things that I highly recommend looking into in terms of, I need to move this out of the way. Okay, there we go. Those are some things that you can look into in terms of adding particular features. There is also the recommendations. I don't know if anyone has done recommendations, but sometimes you have someone who says, if you ever need a recommendation, like whether it's a faculty member or an employer, and they say, if you ever need a recommendation, I would love to give you a recommendation. Well, the challenge is going back to them several years later saying, remember when you said you write that letter of recommendation, and having them try to remember all of the great things that they wanted to say about you. And so if ever you have someone say something like that for you, or they said they would be willing to serve as a reference, you might even ask them, well, would you mind writing a recommendation on my LinkedIn profile? Because if they do that, then that allows them to be able to keep that as a historical piece. So then you can constantly refer people to that when they want to ask about you as a collaborator or as a partner. You'll also see there's a feature here that says ask for recommendation. So you can actually ask a recommendation for someone who's in LinkedIn so they can increase that information. I don't spend a lot of time with skills and endorsements because anybody can say that you have a skill. It doesn't necessarily mean that they've actually seen you use the skill. They may just be doing it so that you can say that they have a skill. So this doesn't mean a whole lot unless you have higher numbers than what you see here. 11, 1, and 11 is not a high number in terms of what skills a person has.
While I want to also mention, if you put in, you can put in publications as well, and also put your collaborators in there on that too. So if you have other authors on your publication, then you can add them also in there on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, and actually the next person's profile that I want to show you is actually the example that I want to give you for that. Who is an adjunct professor at Trinity University, and he has a publication section that is really well built out. So great segue. You'll see he has 15 publications listed on his profile, and he summarizes each of them. He gives you the title and such. He even does what Dr. Miller was talking about in terms of having a collaborator. This is our soccer coach, so he does not have LinkedIn profile. So, or should I say Trinity's, I'm not there anymore. Trinity soccer coach, so that's why it's blank. But when you look down here, you'll see the 2 people that he collaborated with on this particular publication, 3 people that he did on this one. Again, they provide hyperlinks to the different publications. I don't know if they'll be able to access it. So you'll get to see the summary and you can look at it even further. So again, this is really good for someone who's planning on going into education because it allows them direct access to the publications that you have done. So great resource in terms of building out your LinkedIn profile. The other thing that I wanted to point out that I spoke about earlier was this education section. And again, you'll see that he included all 3 of the areas, the bachelor's, the master's, and his doctorate. But then he also talked about his dissertation topic. So your research topics or your thesis topics that you may have done in your master's program, these are all things that might be of interest. You don't know what's going to be that intersection that causes them to click between your experience and what they're looking for in a candidate. So more is better. You'll also see that he actually described his positions and the work that he was doing. And you can see in depth that he uses the first person I don't use first person, but people have different preferences with regards to what they recommend. So those are some key things that are pretty important as you're going through the process. I'm going to show a few more as we go through this. These are the ones that we talked about, the projects, the publications, the language. Volunteer experience is another really important one. Again, you might volunteer with an organization that's really important to that company or really important to the decision maker who's looking at your resume. Other organizations that you might be affiliated with or partnered with. We talked about recommendations, and then interests. I'll show you that one as well, because that is a really important one in terms of people being able to, again, see that you actually do what you say that you do, or that you have an interest in what you say that you're interested in. So for example, oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm moving faster than my screen is moving. When you come down here to the interest section, why is it moving so slow? There we go. Interests. The interest section is where you can reflect what you're interested in. And so what you'll see here is the different companies that he has interest in. And these probably seem like a hodgepodge of companies to you. Probably don't see much of a theme. There is some things in terms of like health and wellness and athletics, because he does work in sports administration. But then you also see some random things that don't seem to relate to athletics, though the majority do. The random ones are because he actually worked in internships as an internship director. So he started following these for his students because they offered internship opportunities to his students. Groups is another one that's really important. You'll see a lot of these deal with his alma mater, but then there are also some that deal with his place of employment currently, like Trinity University. You'll see the Sports Business Journal, and you'll see the North American Society for Sports Management, the Sports Management Networking Group, the Sports Management Education Forum. So if I was someone who's looking for someone with expertise in sports management, me looking at the groups and the companies that are interesting and helps me to see that this really is something that he gets into. And then of course the schools is really often what people have gone as far as their alma mater. So those are recommendations in terms of helping to really create a theme that is prominent throughout your LinkedIn accounts, so that people can actually see that you are who you say you are and that you really are about what you say you're about. Any questions on any of that so far?
I had a former student that he asked for a recommendation, and I noticed in his about section that he used he, not first person.
Mm-hmm.
And is that what you, and at first it was a little off-putting because I was like, who wrote this for you? But then is that your recommendation, is that they do continue to use?
I actually don't mind which way they do it. Okay. I think that however you do it, it should be a clear communication of who you are and not awkward. So that's the biggest, for me, the biggest thing is it awkward when you write about yourself in first person, or is it awkward when you write about yourself in third person? Right. With the resume, absolutely no first person in your accomplishment statement. When you're in your experience section, absolutely no first person is my recommendation from my background. But in the profile and in the profile, the professional profile, the profile summary, or the summary profile, whatever you want to call it, you can see a lot of flexibility with first person in that. And the reason why is people say that that is the one opportunity for you to show a little bit about your personality. Mm-hmm. So some people even use it in a very informal way because they want to show that they are relatable and they want to show themselves as a charismatic person. I don't have a preference in the summary. I do have a preference for the bullet points in your actual resume and your experience section. Great question.
I think part of the reason to jump in on that is because when LinkedIn originally started, when you tried to connect with someone, all you could see was their about section. Mm-hmm. So that's why you would write it in third person, so that it's not like, I did this, so it would be more like a bio of something you submit for someone else. But now things have changed because you can now look through a lot more people's profiles.
All right, So we're gonna move on to links and attachments. I highly recommend, if you are actively job seeking, that you consider putting your resume as an attachment, as a PDF on your LinkedIn profile. This will allow people to be able to promote you to other people, so to speak. So if I know I have a friend who is a good fit for this position, and I know the person who's hiring for that position, I can just send the LinkedIn profile. I don't have to ask that person to send me the resume and then I send the resume to the other person. If I give them the link to the LinkedIn profile, they'll automatically have all the information that they need, and that person can print that PDF out and look and see whether or not they want to consider it further or reach out to them. For identity protection, I recommend that if you do upload your resume onto your LinkedIn account or your CV, your curriculum vitae, I highly recommend that you remove your email address and your phone number. And if you are still putting your street address on there, please remove your street address. If we're gonna talk about resumes and I step away from LinkedIn and I put on my resume hat, I would say that you should not have your street address on your resume either. It's not relevant anymore. They can see the city and state when they look at where you're working in terms of, are you in my geographic location? But there really nowadays is not a reason for you to actually have your street address on your resume. And you definitely shouldn't put it on a resume that's going to be online. Video recordings, if you have video recordings that are work related, you can actually upload those files. You can put your personal websites or e-portfolios on it as well. We already talked about the publications that you can add, including articles, book chapters, and so forth. And then you also can upload your social media handles, and this would be in your introduction section. I have a link in the resources for this workshop that actually talks about how you can do that. And then this part, I really want to talk about briefly, how to expand your network with LinkedIn. So we talked about the interest groups. I think that if there's an organization such as FCSE and they have an active LinkedIn group, you can join that LinkedIn group. If you did the career development workshop that was this summer and then joined, you can join the NCDA LinkedIn group. Why join a group? Because that's another level of connection. So if you're searching for someone who works in this organization, or you're searching for someone who has this level of expertise. I talked about earlier how you can find people who will come in your search results who are first connections, second connections, and third connections. You can also find people in your search results if they are in the same group as you. So joining a group allows you to extend the number of people that you can actually connect with. So I recommend joining those groups. And again, it also shows people that you are interested in that particular area. Professional organizations and special interest groups are all the types that I would recommend. In addition to that, the ways to connect with people. Most people don't think about this. And this is something I just want to put in your brain, put in your mind, put in your thoughts. When you have a guest speaker who presents in your class or who you attend a workshop for, if you felt like they were extremely knowledgeable and that you would like to learn more about whatever topic or subject matter that they are the expert in, I recommend that you reach out to them through LinkedIn, especially if they're active on LinkedIn, because then you will always have that person as a connection through LinkedIn instead of trying to find a business card that you lost, or trying to ask the person who coordinated that workshop, do they still have that person's contact information? So this is another way for you to expand your connection to the experts in industry. This is also great for your classmates, your coworkers, any sort of people that you collaborate with on developing programs and putting on events. Your colleagues, of course, are important. Community group members, so if you're in a volunteer organization or attend some sort of religious organization such as a church or a temple, and there are people that you interact with regularly, these might be people that you would connect with on LinkedIn, building again your network. They may not be in a profession that you think you will need information about in the future, but again, remember, when you search for someone, first, second, and third connections come up. So this person may not be someone that you need information from, but one of their connections might be someone who can help you with whatever it is that you're trying to get that contact for. So always consider how it's not just the one person, but there are also connections that you may have that can be beneficial to them, and connections that they have that may be beneficial to you. And so there's also a feature on LinkedIn called People You May Know, and that recommends people that you either have connections with through other people or through shared groups or through your industry. Look at that. It's pretty much like the Facebook feature that does the same thing, but that also allows you, again, to expand your network so that you're not looking up these things when you need them. And what I mean is you're not like desperately trying to find someone who works at this organization when you're trying to get into that organization, but there's already someone that you're connected with through that organization because you have this huge network. Any questions about the making connections? I'll show y'all that feature.
What would be your opinion, since we're educators, on students wanting to connect with us?
I have over 5,000 connections, and many of them are because I connected with students. Because one thing to remember is they will not always be students.
No, I recognize that too, coming from student affairs, but I've also heard others that are like, I will not, because it changes the demographics and like the polling data of jobs to apply for, and like who comes and sees my profile and things, so it can distract from the field as well. So I wanted to know.
I still think it's valuable for the student, especially if you're their professor or their advisor or whatever level it is, because it allows them to access your network. And our role is serving the students and equipping them. So for me, that's a little bit more important. So I guess it depends on what your priority is and how you are using LinkedIn. For me, LinkedIn has majority been my way of connecting other people. And so I value being able to connect them to other students who are also interested in this or who had an internship in this particular field to share with another student about how that internship experience might have been. But I also value it by connecting them to the professionals that I'm connected to in the field. So it really just depends on how you want to utilize it.
I agree with that. Now, if I was teaching at the secondary level, that'd be a different story for me.
My general
But
policy
the
is
post-secondary level, I agree, because sometimes students will say, oh, hey, Dr. Miller, did you see this link? This really has great information, you know, because we were discussing it in class, for example. And so I really appreciate that type of connection.
Yeah, my general rule is I'll accept, but I won't go searching and ask them. Like if they want
Oh,
to
gosh,
my
no.
connection, that's great, but I won't go searching for connections.
For the most part, I actually don't really search people. But again, I'm fine with that right now. I probably, if I wanted to expand into a different industry where I don't have a lot of connections in that industry, then I probably would start searching people, and I would begin with my alumni network.
Nicole added something.
Thank you. I think there's a big difference between LinkedIn, yes, and other social media sites in terms of its purpose. Absolutely. Facebook, absolutely not. I'm not connecting with students on Facebook. In most cases, I'm not connecting with most people on Facebook unless it's like family and like friends from a while ago. So great point. I talked about the LinkedIn handle. This is the example that I wanted to show you. Very big different from the young lady who had her MBA, PhD, and a whole bunch of numbers at the end of her handle. And this is easy for me to remember. These are just some last tips. You want to make sure that you have clear accomplishment statements that I talked about earlier for the experience section. Your header should be very specific in terms of, I say specific, but I mean like specific to your career trajectory and what you bring to the table. Not so specific that is your exact title, because a lot of times the exact title may be limiting. And then your complete education section. So please make sure that you're putting the dates and all of the information that will help them to understand that education journey. And then you want to make sure that the interests that you have, like the groups that you've joined, the influencers that you're following, are those who are subject matter experts in the field that you're trying to go into. Because that allows people to be able to see that, okay, again, this person is very serious about this because that is what they're doing on their social media or on their LinkedIn. So I'm going to show you all this last one. Wow. This is actually, remove this. Do I need to do a search for myself? This, there we go. There we go. Bring it go to me. Absolutely not. And then we stop sharing. See what you did? Resume share. Okay. So this is, oh goodness, this little control bar is all types of
Connected to that
in my
lady.
Yes, we just connected. And Dr. Miller can tell you how frequently I check my LinkedIn. I was like, oh my gosh, this was a while ago. Okay, so what you'll see is the connections. So sometimes you'll be able to see the connections that people have if they allow you to be able to do that. You'll also be able to see this information here as far as my institution. As I mentioned earlier, I include something that summarizes my all in all, what I bring and what I aspire to continue in. As you go down a little bit further, this is how you manage LinkedIn. So you want to look at this dashboard because it lets you know who's viewing your profile. That's important because it could be future employers. Some people are stalking your profile because they're interested in you as a collaborator or perhaps bringing you on in an employment opportunity. And also you'll see the post views is 333. You guys, I repost, so it's not original content, but at the same time, that's still a relatively high number. So again, even if you're reposting or posting a link or liking something, it shows activity on your particular profile. So this section is really important for you to get a better understanding of how active you are on the platform. And then this is my summary here. I did use first person early on, kind of going along with what Mara said and what Jacob said. I did not use first person, I used third person. But then after doing a little bit more research on what was preferred on LinkedIn, I changed it to first person because they talked about it being more of an informal and a better connection with people. And pretty much I summarized what I've been doing over the last few years. I talked about my passion because they want to know you as a person. That's the biggest difference between this and the resume is that you get to add a little bit of your personality to it. And then, as I mentioned with my activity, which you will see, I do not post original stuff. Twyla Huff likes this. That is the extent of my post, right? And this is a former student worker when I was back at the university. This young lady here works for the organization that does the Fulbright, but she was also one of my students back in the day. This is somebody from high school, but like you see most of the posts that are in my activity are things that I liked or where I celebrated or congratulated someone. So just go in every few weeks and look at the content that's on your wall and like or congratulate or whatever to get people aware of your activity and to have a more active profile. You'll see here that I use the paragraph block for my descriptions of what I did. All 3 of my degrees are listed. I talked about skills and endorsements. Now, when I mentioned it with the young lady, she had 11. I will say this, if you have over 100 on your skills and endorsement, it might be credible. And so I'm fine with like career counseling, community outreach, and interview preparation because they have such high numbers. But if they have like 12 or 15 or 20, I don't feel like they say really a lot about your skill as really being a skill that is endorsed. So like, I feel like I'm a good teacher, but clearly only 18 people agree, right? So it's not the first thing that comes to people's minds. And then interesting enough, it says career advising. Only 5 people agree that I do well with career advising, but yet at the same time, these individuals said that 99 plus said career counseling. So it's really curious to see what's the difference between career counseling and career advising in these people's minds. But again, it goes back to the fact that I really don't think that that is a very credible element, and I would not spend a lot of my time on the skills and endorsements. I have a couple of the recommendations. Most of my interests are going to be in higher education because that's where I've been working. You'll notice that my influencers are people that I feel like have something to say And I think that if someone looked at my profile, they might be like, oh, okay, well, Jeff Salingo, he's definitely a big person in higher education. So the fact that she follows him indicates that she does have an interest in this area. So this just goes back to some of the things that I talked about with that aspect. Questions?
I have one.
Oh, I do have a background.
Can you hide yourself from people like you can on Facebook?
Like selectively or all people?
Like,
You can't really do it selectively, but you can do it broadly. So for me, the only people who are going to see mine are people who are connected, like first or second level connection.
I have this friend, and it really is a friend, who she has an ex-husband who was like, she separated herself from all types of social media, like blocked him from everything, and he was stalking her on LinkedIn.
I have
She
not
can
found
call LinkedIn
Yeah.
and get that to stop.
Yeah.
With
Oh,
that, yeah.
I was just
they can
wondering,
make
'cause it's
specific
like-
requests to LinkedIn and get that to-
Directly.
Yeah,
Or
directly,
they're
especially if
putting
she's
people-
got a restraining order in particular,
Yeah.
they will make sure that.
It's not that
But I'm
bad,
just
but-
saying, that's one of the things that LinkedIn does do, because I had a friend, same thing,
Mhm.
was
Oh,
being
wow.
stalked, and
Mhm.
she called them and they removed that person from her, so he could
Yeah.
not see anything about her whatsoever, so.
But that has to be a technical
Yeah.
on their back end.
Yeah.
It can't be something that,
No.
Like a
you-
customer service.
So
type
you're
of
like,
thing.
oh,
Yeah.
this person's following me now. I don't want them to, go away.
So there's not an actual open feature that you can access on it, but yeah, it sounds like customer service. would be the way to
Yeah,
go.
oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she said they were very good about that and everything, because she definitely wanted to, she was looking for another job, and she
Mhm.
definitely wanted to be out there, but she just
Right.
didn't want this person to find her. So,
Ron had a question.
So do you think it's worth paying for, like, even though, like, at my level? Because like a previous job I had, my company paid for the sales navigator. And it was expensive, but they paid for it, but I was meeting with CEOs and CFOs, like, I needed it to stalk these people to set appointments to get into their calendar,
Yeah.
but is it worth it for me just to pay the $30 a month for the basic?
So,
Because where I am now, I can't see who's looking at my profile,
Yeah.
and it kind of bothers me in a way.
Mhm.
I'm like, is it worth $30? Because when I was working in retail and sales, I used this a lot. But now I'm
it
just
really
like,
depends. I mean, it depends on the person. I pay for mine. Again, because the connections that I could make, let me take it back. Trinity paid for mine, which was not an issue. This last time was pretty painful because I paid for it for myself. And I'm still debating about whether or not I want to renew when it comes, because I do it annually, which is even more, well, it's not more expensive, but it's a large chunk at one
Right.
time. I think it's valuable if you are job seeking and if it's relevant to the work that you're doing. As a GRA, it's not currently as valuable to the work that I'm doing, and I'm not actively job seeking. So I could justify not doing it. It just really depends on how valuable it's gonna be. If you're job seeking, you wanna be able to access more than 10 to 15 people a month. You wanna see who's looking at your profile, because if you apply for a position, and this has happened before, they apply for a position, and then all of a sudden, one of the people who's viewing your profile is someone who works at the organization that you applied to, that's something you wanna know. So, unless you're like me and you, you got that feature where you don't let them see who you are, so it's anonymous. So when I search people's profiles, they can't see who I am. All they see is an anonymous LinkedIn member search your profile.
oh, I don't
And
like
that was because when I did the job search, I would look up all of my, what are the candidates, but I didn't want them to know that I was looking at the candidates because I didn't want them to get
Right.
excited.
Okay.
So,
but I have had other universities contact me, and I'm using basics, I'm not paying anything, and they've either contacted me through a direct message in LinkedIn, or they've contacted me by email because they saw my email address.
Okay. that's a
And
good
said, I
point.
saw you on LinkedIn, are you looking for a new faculty position?
no.
You can tell I just accepted this one. But anyway, but I'm just saying, there are others that can, if you're not anonymous, can find you, and if you have your contact information, they still can locate you and email you if they're impressed with what you've been doing and so forth, so.
Especially if you put open to, you know, collaborations or partnerships or jobs. And then also on this right-hand side of the profile, you'll see edit your custom URL. That is where you go to change it from all of those numbers and letters and randomness, so that it is something that actually reflects you more clearly. And then edit the contents is the section under it. So that's all the content that I was just talking about, how to edit those different sections. It'll help you with that. You'll use the pin, the little pin emblem to edit that particular section. So you'll see now that there's a pin here. There's a pin here. Everywhere that you see a pin is an area that you can edit. And then also further down, this little green link where it says view profile public visibility, that's how you can take it from being public, which means you don't want somebody to search Twyla Huff and then Twyla Huff's LinkedIn account will come up. So right now, if someone did Twyla Huff, one of the things that would come up in the Google search functions would be my LinkedIn profile because I have it on. And then you'll see all of the other things down here, the background photos, the show. So this is where you want to go to do all of the things that we were talking about.
Did I step out while you were?
No, it's actually right here. So when you go to your regular profile,
Now, is that different from what I see on my phone?
Yeah.
I can't even
So
tell you.
they're not all the features are available on your phone. 'Cause I do
No.
most of mine through my phone.
See, and I don't. And I had students who would ask me questions about the app and I'm like,
Yeah, but
I
the
can't.
app
The app
doesn't show
It's
it.
kind of a condensed version.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but on, if I open it at my desktop,
mhm.
You use
This
the
is
app.
what your,
I'll see
this is
that.
what your page would look like. And then you would go to the edit profile and all of these here on the right.
So
So.
we get that ad for Baylor's EDD now online. Sorry.
I always get it too.
Up there at the top.
So if y'all have any other questions, just let me know afterwards. I know that we are running running out of time, so I just wanted to show you this.
Dr. Alexander said you need to present this to all of the student teachers and interns, just for your information.
Oh, yeah, I got some, I'm teaching a career prep class. This would be a great.
It would be a great.
I just, oh, okay.
class.
I just wanted to show y'all one more feature. So I talked about how to expand your network and I said alumni. And so a lot of people don't know this feature because it's hidden. This is for multiple purposes. One is if you're looking at an organization to join, you might want to see where their alumni have gone, like what work field they've gone into, what industry they've gone into. You might want to connect as well. And so you go to this alumni feature here. And it shows you where these people live. So you could do it for Texas Tech. You see where the people who've gone to Texas Tech live. This one's specific to Trinity University. You see where they work. You see the organizations that they work for. And if you're like, okay, I want to know even more, again, you get to go down here and see where are people from Texas Tech geographically, where are people from Texas Tech, and I'm saying Texas Tech, but this is Trinity. Where are they in terms of the companies that they're working for? You can also do this for the field of study that they're in, what they're doing, what they studied, what skills they have, and how you're connected. So you can look at all the connections. I have 1,160 connections from Trinity University. I could do Texas Tech and do the same thing. I could do whatever other institution you went to. And this is how you can go about expanding that network because, and I'm sorry, I don't know if this is the difference between premium and basic because mine is paid. But when you click on them, you can actually see the people's profiles. And then that's how you can, there they are. I was like, where are they? These are the people. So these are people, if I was a Trinity student, I would be able to go through and see these individuals. If I wanted to do specifically finance, I wanted to do specifically education, I could see the people who did the education program at Texas Tech University. And then I'm like, okay, well, I want to connect with this person because they work at an organization that I'm interested in working to. I want to be a consultant. Oh, not him, no. But if I did, I did want to connect with him, I would send him a message. He's a little, he likes himself. Okay, so with that being said, these are some resources that can help you. It is a lot to cover. I'm sorry we didn't actually get an actual discussion. But you know.
You did a great job.
That really mean comment right there.
Was that snarky?
So now we have our LinkedIn expert over here. So anybody need help with LinkedIn? We've got one right here, network person right here. All right, thank you guys for joining us and so forth. We appreciate it very much. I will get this recording converted and then you'll be able to review it again if you'd like, or if you have any questions at Twyla and so forth, you know how to contact her and she'll be happy to answer any questions you have. We hope you had a great time with us and lunch and so forth. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye. I didn't send the references. I didn't show the references.